So let's just drop the bombshell and put it out there with a blank. What does FD look like for you this year?
Yeah, unfortunately, Formula Drift for me in 2024 is not in the cards
Now,
at all.
we've spoken quite a bit prior to this. I mean, just as the
Hmm.
whole development thing was coming up. And I think that the interesting part about having a conversation like this is I think, and I say this I think, but I believe that for people that are, familiar with Formula Drift, an FD fan, somebody that maybe watches on a live stream, maybe somebody that doesn't have a lot of intimate knowledge of kind of pro drifting from behind the curtain, that you would see a guy like you, an FD driver that's well accomplished, has won, years in, won an event, like has, kind of a consistent program, a very consistent appearance in the series itself. And you would say, well, he is definitely, in the top tier of the best drivers in the world. So how could it be possible that he wouldn't
Hmm.
continue to run?
Yeah.
But there's a real reality to these programs, even when you're in the upper echelon of professional drifting, that happens every single year, which is
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as we all know, money makes the world go round. It's just one of those things where it's as a as a driver, I guess in my position, that is from a privateer standpoint, that doesn't have a big cushion on the back end to fill in the gaps if budgets diminish. Like
yeah,
it's not a if, it's a when. And it just depends on when or if that blow is big enough to, temporarily disable your program. And unfortunately this year, the state of the industry is tough. And um, it just ended up being one of those things where we got enough cuts in budget to where it did not make sense to try and do the season. It would actually hurt me more than it would benefit for me to try to push through it.
yeah.
And um, it's like honestly the hardest call I've ever made in my entire life, because the last 13 years of my life has been drifting straight nonstop, and the last 6 7 years of my life now has been Formula Drift, and that's all I've ever done or ever wanted to do. And um, it definitely opened my eyes, and this is every driver's kind of worst nightmare, and it's it's kind of the root of everyone's stress in my position for their entire career, I guess, is being in this position. But now that I'm in it, I kind of like see where I'm just looking at things like how could I have changed my program or changed what I was doing to make sure the program had more longevity,
Yeah.
and what was I lacking and why am I in this position, so that I can move forward and fix it for seasons to come. So it might be one of those blessing in disguise things where I can really focus this year on building parts of my program that lacked to try to create a better package for next year. That's what we're shooting for.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely super weird to not be pulling my rig and driving it into like Long Beach right now, because everyone's unloading, everyone's there.
Does it
So
feel a little bit like that I'm sitting on the sidelines, like looking from afar, like I should be there, like this feels like, you know what I mean? Like, is there a lot of that, like, man, this just feels terrible kind of feeling?
yeah, it's not, honestly, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Like this time of the year is always the most pressured and stressful time of my life.
Yeah.
Like every year, to prep the car and prep everything for the season in Long Beach and all the ups and downs and all the other shit. But it's like I definitely am bummed that I'm not there, but there's other aspects of it that I'm excited to do some things that I wasn't able to do because of the amount of work I had to put in to make my program run the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was by no means easy on my end. So right now I am definitely a little more stress free and breathing a little more
Yeah.
easily just because I'm not in that mad dash to make it to Long Beach. But I know when I fire up the live stream and go to watch the event, it's gonna, it'll hit a little harder, but it's definitely
Right.
it's not a goodbye. It's I'll see you guys later for sure.
Is there
But
do you have a fear that what turns into a temporary situation could be a forever situation? Like, is there a little bit of that fear of like, man, what if this doesn't allow me to get back to FD next year?
I mean, that thought always crosses your mind,
Right.
but I'm confident that that won't happen
Right.
with my stuff. Like, I have a good plan for the season, and like, as long as something crazy doesn't happen, I should be able to execute it good enough to be in a way better position come 2025 than I was come 2024. So, I've talked to a lot of people. We've talked about this a lot of other partners trying to come up with a plan to, I don't want to say salvage the season, but just kind of change direction and work with what we have to make it the best we can. And I think I have a solid idea of what I need to do, and I'm excited for it.
I think it's interesting because when you start looking at, I think when you're looking at, Formula Drift, you spend your whole drifting career anyway, at least for the part where you start to really become competitive. You kind of get to that point where you really have your eyes set on FD. It's the main event. It's the stage that you're trying to be on. And you spend almost every waking ounce of effort, whether it's be building a car or trying to come up with money or building a skill set or trying to practice or whatever it may be. You do all these things. The idea that you're trying to get to be a professional, Formula Drift driver, and then you get there. And it's like, okay, I'm here, and the idea of maybe that you've been on this treadmill for so long doing the same thing because it's a never-ending process until it stops is kind of an interesting aspect, because now for you at least it's slowed down, but this doesn't mean that you're going to stop drifting.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
I'm going to keep drifting until I can't get into a car anymore. I'm going to continue to do it.
Well, one question I had was that, at what point in the off season or even towards the end of last season was thoughts of maybe, this kind of issue arising and starting to really form in your head in the sense of like, I really had to start kind of thinking on what 24 is going to look like and then ultimately making the decision not to run FD this year.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of a compounding thing. Budgets are set pretty much by word of mouth, I guess, like pre-season. It usually, if you're doing it right, you're already discussing budgets and you're trying to get some things set in stone. It might not be contracted yet, but you're trying to get an idea of what you're going to have to work with at the end of the Formula D season, the previous year. So, October time. And then most of these companies' budgets are allocated and basically spent before the new year comes around. So you don't have a lot of time to really change direction if something big happens, but there are instances where a company might, think they have X amount of dollars to spend, and maybe the higher ups flip the switch on them maybe a little later than they'd like. There's always curveballs in this industry. Things can always happen. And I think for me, it was just a compounding. I always try to stay positive and try to stay optimistic with that kind of stuff and not worry about it until it's really like DEFCON 1. But it was probably a month ago when it got to the point where I was like, man, it might actually not happen this year.
Yeah.
And I was still pushing to the end, still trying to find any way around it and some way that I could figure it out. But it definitely was one of those things where I was always working towards it and I always try to have a backup plan, but I kind of got fought a lot of the way this time, and I don't want to say I folded early, but I didn't want to wait too long to try to make the FD season happen to where I didn't have a chance to grow it into something else or transition it to something else either. I didn't want to take my time and all of a sudden April comes around and then I'm like, all right, now start planning for the, plan B. Like I needed to make the decision sooner than later if it was going to work out the other way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, we probably spoke, again, you're right, like probably about a month ago, and you were like, hey, listen, like in the hypothetical sense that this doesn't work out, here's what I'm thinking about. And so, it's interesting. It's like, because right at the time where you're supposed to be finishing off the plans and kind of finalizing everything, getting the car finished up and doing all these last minute things for FD, you're kind of in that pivotal part where you're like, man, there's some companies here that have basically not been able to come up with what they said that they would, which is now changing the ability I have to be able to financially put this program together and get this thing done. But in the same respect, besides the fact that you want to go drifting, then there's other piece of like, well, I'm not giving up on this career that I have. So I need to put together another piece of this, and I need to do it now just in case, right? Like, which is tough because like you got to go to these sponsors and these different people that did come on board for random different levels, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And you got to say, hey, listen, the whole plan that we had that we did based off of this, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm going to do this. Would you be in? But I don't know that this program is dead yet.
Yeah. Oh, it's a logistical nightmare to do that. And I've been I've lived on my phone for the last probably 2 weeks straight, like most of the day, trying to figure out a game plan. And there's some new partners that were going to come on this year that luckily are still involved, but the plan we have now is not even remotely close to the plan that I sold them on before.
Yeah.
Because of how plans changed, and they were understanding of it. I'm like, hey, here's the deal. I know I said this, but unfortunately it just can't happen because of X, Y, and Z. I'm going to pivot. This is the new plan now. Are you in or you out? And by the way, if you say yes to this, there's still a slight chance that we might be able to do plan A, but this is just I basically had to build out 2 different programs completely and try to show value in each program, even though they're completely different, and say, hey, I'm either going to do this or I'm going to do this. I need you to be okay with both options because I won't know until like crunch time comes.
Yeah.
So
a
little weird.
Do you think that this is like, we've probably talked about this so many times over the past, X amount of years, but like, do you think this is we all know that programs come and go. We all know that, certain sponsors come and go. People run into money difficulties. Down years can affect budgets and spending commitments from other companies. But do you feel that maybe drifting or professional drifting or Formula Drift is a little bit more susceptible to this than maybe some other forms of motorsport? Or do you kind of just feel this is par for the course? Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't.
It's hard to say, man. Like I think motorsports in general is seeing kind of a hard change just because the way these sponsorship programs are built nowadays are so different than what they were before social media existed.
Right.
And there's companies, you have some companies that are more old school and all they want is results and to win, and that's the most important thing to them. And it's still the race on Sunday, sell on Monday mindset.
Yeah.
But those are dwindling, and now it's more of the like, we don't care if you win at all. All we care about is the analytics of your socials.
Yeah.
And the statistics of how many eyeballs see your stuff is the most important aspect of this program. So whether you're on the box or you don't even make it to the first battle. Doesn't matter to us as long as we get the numbers. And that's hard to balance. And I don't think that's specific just to drifting right now.
Right.
But I think drifting is also tough because we are a younger sport, and it is mainly a paddock made up of privateers and individual brands versus a paddock of teams that are built as a conglomerate, and then these teams have drivers under them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like say, so NASCAR has, they'll say they'll have 4 cars. Like, say, I know that's a big team, but say they're running 4 cars. They might have, say, if I owned a NASCAR team, Travis Reeder Motorsports, and I have all these companies that invest in the Travis Reeder Motorsports team, and these drivers get paid a salary, and these companies invest in the team, not the driver individually.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go from there. That's a whole different game plan versus like these companies investing in Travis Reeder Motorsports as a team and as me as the driver and everything else. It's harder to, like, the value you prove is strictly based on what you can do, and you have to decide as one person which direction you want to take it, whether it be focusing on winning all the time or focusing on your socials or whichever direction. And then you have to try to balance that with time. And I simply don't have, it was very hard for me to try to find enough time to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I got to come up with a plan to be that full package so that I can compete with some of these teams that have the budget to have that full package. There's just so much that goes into it.
Yeah.
But like, times are changing, and it's kind of an adapt or die situation.
Yeah.
Because it ends up being, as bad as it sounds, the way it is like, it's either motorsports is either independent wealth or social media driven. Like, so it might be influencers, YouTubers, whatever, that come in that have the funding because of the brand that they have built on other platforms, or people that are financially able to just bankroll it if they don't have enough partners to keep going.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm neither. So
well,
that's where it gets increasingly harder,
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we've seen such a mix over the years, even from the people that are quote unquote self-funded. A lot of these guys start out self-funded, but when you realize where the self-funding is coming from, it's maybe from a family or a family business or whatever. And even at that, I mean, I'm sure that when I say that, you could think of a handful of people that had that situation, but like, you get to a certain point where it's like, it never made financial sense for them. It was all about the love of doing it. It was self-funded. And then all of a sudden you get to a point where the family member, the business, whatever it is, like, look, we did it. Look, there's never really, we're not going to get too much more out of this. Like, this doesn't make sense for us to continue. And then programs fold and different things transpire. But the one thing I think that, maybe if you're going to look at the positive side of a bad circumstance like this, and I say bad because, if you had the choice, you'd be in Long Beach right now, is that you're going to get to do some pretty cool things this year, hopefully. So what's the plan? Are we allowed to talk about the plan?
Yeah, we can talk about the plan.
All right. I don't know. Listen,
it's still kind of loose because I haven't put together like the exact scheduling yet, but I just want to, since I can't compete in Formula Drift, I don't want to compete at all.
Right.
I only want to just go drive my cars 11 out of 10 like a total asshole because I haven't been able to in a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm basically just going to, as many fun, like festival style, like big events that I can afford to hit, I'm going to get the Banana finished up, my practice car, as fast as I can. That thing is going to be the workhorse for most of the year.
Nice.
I'm going to go beat the living crap out of it everywhere that I can, and I'm going to have a media guy following me around every minute that I can afford to have him there. And we're just going to try to crank out as much content as possible and build the brand and have as much fun burning tires as we can this year. So it's definitely not going to be a lack of driving by any means. I bet this year I probably get more seat time than I have in the last few years. Like I said, I'm going to miss the competition a ton. But if I'm not competing at the highest level, I don't want to do it at all. I just want to go drive and just like jam with my boys all year.
Yeah.
What are
You know
some of the events that you're eyeing?
I want to hit I want to do some grid life stuff.
Right.
I want to do some Drift Appalachia stuff with those guys up in the mountains.
Yeah.
I want to do those. I want to do, there's a couple like local bigger events that I haven't been able to do the last couple of years. I really want to. I want to make it to the Winter Jam stuff. I want to do a couple of like the weekend festival styles. There's one at Pikes Peak this year. There's some in Idaho. There's some at some other like little closer tracks to me, but want to do all that, and I want to do some off-road stuff as well.
Cool.
Kind of like venture around. I got my Jeeps done. I got my Can-Am. Like I want to go dabble in that market a little bit, not necessarily from a race standpoint, but just drive a ton. So
right.
I don't know. I'm excited for it because last year at the end of the season, I took the pro car to Laguna. Despite the car not being like 100% because I put it in the wall at Irwindale, me and the guys stabbed it together and made it the best we could because I wasn't going to miss it. And I had so much fun at Laguna that I'm like, damn, I need to make sure I can do more of these. But for me, it's like I don't have the money to do both.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a one or the other. And because my hand was kind of forced into the other, I'm going to take full advantage of that.
Cool.
So
it's too soon, but like when you see some of these other series kind of really picking up some steam, let's say like Drift Masters or something like that, did your head ever go to that situation of like, man, maybe I should like try to see what that's about, get over there, like stuff like that? Or is it kind of just like, look, it's not my thing for now?
I would definitely do it. Obviously, it's just I'd have to have a ride.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like there'd be no way to do it because competing a season here is expensive enough as it is.
Yeah.
Going overseas, like I see the guys that come from overseas to come compete in Formula Drift, and the amount of money they spend just to get a crew over here.
Yeah.
Some of the guys that don't speak English have to have a whole crew of people that
speak whatever they speak. Yeah.
They're all their homies, and like they have to bring all those guys internationally 8 times a year. Like that's they're spending $120,000 in flights just a year for their dudes to come drive, and like that would be like that kind of money is like a lot more than I feel like I'd be able to come up with right now. But I mean, if the opportunity presented itself, for sure, like I'll go wheel with those dudes.
What do you think? What is your gut feeling? And I know this is a hard question to answer, right? Because like I think, but like in average on the field, let's say to maybe some of the people that compete in some of those European events versus maybe the Formula Drift, how do you feel that the skill level like stacks up? And I'm not saying we know that there's plenty of great drivers in both series, so I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying like if you had to look like add the field up together, do you think that there's enough of a difference now? Is it just circumstance? Do you think that some of these series really, they have an equal level of playing field?
I think a lot of it's circumstantial. I think a lot of the Drift Masters tracks, other than a couple, are a lot smaller. So they promote really good tandem. I think they have them being able to run certain tires makes the cars a little gnarlier because they don't really have a tire limit when it comes to like tread wear. Like those guys can just be on like the slick with some grooves cut in it type of thing. Some of those tires are absolutely insane and would break half of it. Like with the mechanical grip we have in the cars in Formula D, you put those tires on our cars and they would just be breaking shit left and right. Or they'd be so fast you wouldn't be able to handle them because with the limits and the way that Kevin sets up the tires that he accepts, like they can't be too gnarly. So some of these chassis, you have to figure out how to make them make the grip. In Drift Masters, you can kind of get away with not having a car that's mechanically as good, I think, because the tires are so insane. Yeah. If you can get on that tire. Obviously, we have some combinations in FD where someone might be in a really good mechanical chassis and on a tire that might be a little better suited for that chassis. So they might have a little bit of an advantage there, but I think it's a little more even. But I think they're both great in their own right. I just think kind of comparing apples to oranges because their series rules and their tracks are different.
Yeah.
And their car setup's different versus us. I know like there's a lot of FD guys, if they went to Drift Masters, that would probably struggle that are top level here.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of the top level guys in Drift Masters are going to come here and find certain struggles in how our series is.
Yeah.
So it's like, it'll be exciting to watch some of the Drift Masters dudes that come over this year, even though I won't be competing with them, but like seeing Shanahan drive will be cool because that'll be definitely a different story. I think he'll find some things out that are like different than what it is back in Drift Masters that we do differently or how our tracks flow differently. And he's also driving a car that is like as Formula D as it can get, you know, with it being just like a supercharged V8. It's left-hand drive and it's in a chassis with a lot of mechanical, and he's going to be on a good tire. So he's going to have a weapon of a car, but like he'll have to wheel that car with a lot of the other cars that are equally as fast with some of these guys. They're not going to be pushovers by any means, but everyone, it's going to be awesome to watch for sure. But I don't think that if you did like a Formula D versus like Drift Masters type of thing, kind of like how they did like USA versus Japan a long time ago, I don't necessarily think anyone would run away with it.
Yeah.
I think it'd be pretty even based on certain circumstances, but I don't know. It's all fun. It all grows drifting as a whole as the sport progresses, and I like watching both.
Good. Good.
All right. A question that I had was, it was kind of circling back to earlier when you said that sometimes with the sponsorship stuff, some of these people end up driving for a 3 or 4 person team, or whatever it may be. And then you were also saying on how now today it's either self-funded drivers or, branded people who have huge following or something like that. If the opportunity presented to you, would you join another team leaving Travis Reeder Motorsports behind if that opportunity presented itself to you? Or is there ever a thought to group up with other people that don't have that kind of self-branding or self-funding ability and forming a team to compete?
There's a lot to unpack in that question. I would for sure drive for another team if the opportunity presented itself and it made sense. Mm-hmm. I've had plenty of talks in the past around that, but it had never like came to fruition because there's a lot more logistically to handle in that situation than a lot of people think. As far as me like running my team with another team, like combining, I probably would never do that because that gets really hard when it comes to there's a lot of difficulties in that. Like a lot of people ask me why me and Dylan don't have a 2-car team and we don't trailer around together, like pit together. But what happens if like he sells some deliverable and he has to have a car at some place in the United States and I want to go drive my car somewhere else, and then all of a sudden like they're all stuck in the same rig and we got to fight over who takes what where. And then on top of that, like he shows up to a place going to do a demo or something and he's got to pull all my crap out of the rig to get his car out, and his guys are there moving all my stuff around, or vice versa. That's where it's tough. And then on top of that, if you have any partners that clash, you have to decide. You either have to merge partners in certain instances, or you have to get rid of some, because if you have some sort of conflict of interest with both of the teams coming together, then that's a problem for some of the sponsors. So there's definitely a lot of difficulties in that. I wouldn't run a team with me and some other driver. I would just join. If anything, I would join a team that hired drivers, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
So, but it would be like not in my car. Like I would be in a arrive and drive for someone. I wouldn't put my car in someone else's trailer with all my stuff.
Right. It would be like an RTR situation or a Falcon situation back in the day to an extent and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. I'd be open to that. I wouldn't do the other way around. I'd be better off on my own, I think.
Yeah. What do you think? What I was going before was with Drift Masters. I think one of the things they've really done a good job about is making the excitement there for the fan, right? So you've seen some pretty good turnouts. Now, Formula Drift this year announces new rules that they're going to get rid of, single car qualifying. The whole event's going to be tandem. Give me the thoughts there.
That I think is one of the best decisions ever, because you have, I don't know, single run qualifying I think is super boring and so like archaic in its design when it comes to competitive drifting, because it's, in my opinion, after like a couple good laps, like it's kind of a snooze fest to watch, even for the average viewer. That like, even if someone is, new to drifting and it's still awesome and exciting, it's still so hard to just sit there and watch 35 cars make one lap by themselves.
Right.
And it's like, it's not really what drifting is about for me and for a lot of us. Like, I applaud Formula D for stepping outside the box and doing something that might be controversial to some like this, but all of us drivers, when we talk about this kind of stuff, is like, it can't lose in the future when it comes to like growing the sport, because the one thing everybody wants to see is tandem, and the one thing all our drivers want to do is run tandem.
Right.
And the only thing that makes us better is driving tandem, and we can get our single lap practice in our lead run because we're not paying attention to what's going on behind us regardless. So it's not like we're losing any lead lap practice by any means.
Yeah.
And the way Formula D laid it out for the qualifying bracket, it gives the drivers that don't have as much competition experience, it gives them more practice at that, so that they can be brought up to the same level as everyone else, which some people might not agree with, but I'm all about it because overall it just makes the show better, so that you have like hard hitting battles from the 32 all the way to the finals.
Yeah.
Plus you get better screen time on Friday when everyone's tuning in to watch battles, because everyone's fighting for their life to get into the show on Saturday now. So you're going to see, like, I think that the battles on Friday night are just going to be just as good as the 32 and 16 battles on Saturday.
Right.
So, like, it's, in my opinion, it's just everything about it is a win.
Do you like the idea that the prior event will be an establishing kind of the baseline for at least the it looks like the top 24 for pro, for their positioning and stuff like that going into the following event?
Yeah, I agree with that. I like it because it puts a little bit more pressure on those top guys to perform consistently,
right? Because
they really get axed if they mess up, and it progressively gets worse if they mess up over and over again. So like in a theoretical I've been kind of like rolling through my head is like, say you win one event, so you come out and you're like best odds the next event, right? Say you go out in the 32, but you were seated high.
Yeah.
So you go from winning an event and being high up in the bracket to losing in the 32. So now you're down there, and you might even go into the, based on where you're positioned, you might even go to like the Friday night battles. And if you go into the Friday night battles and you lose in the Friday night battles the next round, then that person that had won an event is now like so deep in the point standings because they basically missed the show.
Yeah.
Because like you just have to have consistency now to keep the points up. And then on top of that, like there could be a situation where just say like, I don't know, Forsberg wins an event, right? Odie gets knocked out in the 32. Then you have Forsberg and Odie in the 32 for the next round. But then say Odie takes out Forsberg, then Forsberg's at the bottom, and now Odie's going through up the ranks. So like the points could just go like this.
Yeah.
And you just have a better chance of having like heavy hitters placed together in the early stages of battle, just like how we had COVID year. Remember when we drew out of a hat?
Yeah.
There's 4 events a year. There's all those double headers.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed that because, yeah, I got drawn a couple like really hard battles in the 32, but I got a couple that worked out in my favor, or like drew the bye or whatever.
Right.
And I liked the randomness of it, but I also liked the fact that the bracket was more exciting to watch throughout the show because it wasn't like the traditional like 1 versus 32, 2 versus 31, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't want to say those battles are almost predictable, but it's statistically speaking,
Yeah, of course.
it's easier to map out how the competition is going to go in a situation like that. You never
Right.
know what's going to happen in drifting, obviously, but this will definitely randomize all the shit and be much harder to predict.
Yeah.
So, for teams preparing for this season with the new rules, with the increased amount of battles and stuff like that, do you think that brings like a level of like kind of caution and preparation of like maybe having to anticipate more frequent damage or just kind of bumps and bruises along the road because you're doing more battles?
So it's actually going to be the same amount of tire consumption.
Oh, okay.
Regardless. That's a big thing that a lot of these tire companies were worried about.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, if someone's in the lower bracket and they're like going through all these battles Friday night, every time we're going to have to supply them with way more tires. But the way practice is set up and everything, it will average out to be about the same amount of tires for everybody throughout the year. And it'll just be tandem all the time. So it shouldn't be bad, but the idea is if someone, is getting a lot of seat time in the Friday night bracket, you would expect them to, at some point, mid-season or later in the season, be able to break into the, like, just starting in the 24 seed on Saturday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other crazy thing about it is there's a chance that for the Friday night bracket, the 16 to final way that it's set up, because of how you finish in that, it will populate you in the next bracket. So you could technically, if you wanted to, you could throw a battle to strategically place yourself in the bracket for Saturday.
Wow.
Like if you were in the 16 to finals bracket, say everyone that broke into the 8 got into the show. I can't remember exactly how it works, but theoretically, like everyone that breaks into the 8 gets into the show. Now, no matter where you are from the 8 to the finals of that Friday night bracket, that places you in the 32 bracket for the next day. So say if you think that if you're confident enough that you could just win that bracket all the way through.
Right.
But if you win it, you're up against a heavy hitter in the 32. You're like, maybe I shouldn't, because if I go out if I lose in the finals of this bracket and I end up second, then it actually places me against this person that statistically have better odds of winning, and it sets me up for a better bracket that I like on Saturday. So you could have a weird situation where someone's like, hey, maybe if we do this, I don't know necessarily if it is going to happen, but it could happen. It could be a strategy. It would be interesting to watch.
That means all we're gonna have to do is listen to all the internet flop business over and over and over again in that situation. I think the interesting thing for us is I don't know if you agree with this, but like this really has the potential to make the pro spec field build a skill level a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Because like there are guys that like are really new to this and are new to the competition aspect. Maybe they haven't figured the car setup out yet, or they struggle with like learning the track, or they're just not comfortable with competition in general. And I've seen drivers come into pro spec and not really qualify for any of the events.
Yeah.
So like at the end of the year, they got 0 tandem practice. How are you supposed to excel in that? Now you'll at least get competition experience on Friday night, no matter what. So I'm hoping that it helps build everybody, because there's one thing about tandeming in practice, and there's one thing about tandeming when like
lights are on.
You progressing through the bracket matters. So it will change from Friday day practice to Friday night battles. And I don't know, it might help a lot of these guys that are just starting out gain a little bit of momentum and confidence because they're battling for something.
Yeah. It's like I almost hope in a way that it becomes the equalizer in pro spec of basically putting, there's some teams I think that have been running for a long time and they still continue to struggle to place or whatever it may be in pro spec, and then there's this whole level of competitor that kind of is able to be in the top part of that pro spec field, and it's like to watch them build, kind of go together. It's like either it's going to be one of those things where you realize you just don't have that piece and some of that field's going to fall apart, or it's going to end up being like this skill level. It's like they're just going to get better and better and better, and you're going to see that pro spec field really rise up. You know what I mean? Like I kind of feel like it's going to create a better divide within some of the people within the field, and you're going to see some of the people that have a lot of that talent and the ability to adapt and really are very good drivers. I feel like they're going to really like start to climb through the field faster than they did before. But it'll be interesting to kind of watch them kind of change the pace of things a little bit.
Yeah, I'm obviously, like I said, I'm bummed out that I'm not going to be able to experience it firsthand, but I am excited to watch how the layout changes the competition, because all in all, at the end of the day, I'm still like am and always will be the most diehard like Formula Drift fan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like I grew up watching it before I was competing in it. So I don't know, it'll be cool to see, and I'm stoked to just sit around and root on my boys and just have fun and hopefully be back there next year to jam with everybody again.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So
you think you're going to find yourself out to some of the events this year, or you're going to try to stay your ass away so that you don't have to worry about even having that feeling?
I don't know, dude. That's the hard part. I was talking to Dan not too long ago, and Dan was like, yeah, I went to FD Orlando because it was by my house, and it was the worst thing ever because I'm sitting there thinking that I should be driving, and I'm all bummed out, so I left. And I'm just like, yeah, dude, I don't know. As much as I want to go to FD Seattle because I haven't missed one in forever, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to yet.
Yeah. I kind of feel like I'd be the same way. Like I wouldn't want to, like, just because it kind of almost sours it for me. Like I don't want to go there to watch, and even if I go there to watch, like you kind of have that level of like what you're used to and what you've been there and being there for the fans, and kind of like, and then all of a sudden you get there and you're just kind of like walking around like a spectator. You're like, oh, it's not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same.
It's not
for
the
sure.
same.
We'll
But
see. I don't know.
there's
Maybe I'll change my mind later in the year, but
there's going to be some pretty rad things that will go on with some of the even expos that you guys are going to, hit.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know. I just want to like the last time that I had like a 450 horsepower ish car that I could drive on a road course at 10/10.
Yeah.
And just really like drive a car at my limit for an entire weekend. Like I haven't been able to do that in a really long time. I haven't had the car, and I also haven't had the time. So I am stoked for that. Like that should be a lot of fun, and kind of get my head back into like the roots of drifting and why I like love this sport in the first place, and why I continue to love doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be a good time. Like I said, it's going to be a bummer, but there's definitely going to be some goods that will come of it. And I think I have a solid plan to maximize what I'm going to have this year.
Yeah.
To set me up there for next year.
How close is the banana to being done?
Everything's rolling. I got so much stuff scattered. I have all the body parts are paint getting finished up. I have the last like few mechanical bits are showing up to be installed, motor trans, all that stuff's in the car. Waiting on a couple things, and then it should be going to wiring very shortly. And I'm hoping in the next few weeks I'm firing that thing, taking it to the dyno, and it's ready to rip.
That's awesome.
The banana is a E46?
No.
E36.
E36. Okay. Cool.
Yep. Yeah. So that thing's basically a 400 wheel NALS, and it'll just be like mega lightweight and easy on tires, easy on drivetrain, and just make a reliable 400 horsepower, and that's what I'm going for. Nice. I'm doing that on top of obviously continuing to refresh the Pro Car. The Pro Car's, all those panels are at paint, and it's prepped and ready, and I'm waiting on the motor to get back, and that thing will be tuned and set up and refreshed and ready to go if if I come across some sort of project I want to use that car for. It is a lot more expensive to use, so I'm not really going to drive it at a lot of events this year, unless it makes sense.
Yeah.
But that car will basically just be sitting in the shop ready to go.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the Banana and I'm doing the Pro car like kind of simultaneously and getting them both ready. So it'll be good.
Yeah. It's going to be a good year. I think this, maybe every once in a while, sometimes I think you need that refresh too, like that ability to step away from it for a minute, kind of get back to doing something that was a little bit more for the enjoyment of it, and then be able to pivot back in. It's hard. Like, you've been doing this stuff for a long time now.
Yeah, I know. And I tell a lot of people though, like, it's not that I don't have fun competing in FD.
Right.
Because it is a ton of fun. I love it. But it's a different kind of fun than doing these like lifestyle, festival events. It's a different type of thing. And I've only been doing competition for so long that I've kind of lost the other side of it. So it'll be good to kind of transition and get a little bit of that back. But I don't know, it's going to be weird because naturally everybody wants to say, like, everyone's just gonna be like, oh, he quit FD because, it's not fun or something. And that's definitely not the case. It's a lot of work. It's a lot more work, but it's work in a different way that is much more rewarding when you are there competing, and it's just a different type of enjoyment. But I don't know, dude. I still don't know how to feel about it exactly. I'm sure it'll set in here in the coming weeks, but it is what it is. I just got to make the best of it.
I think it's one of those things, though. Like, it's a matter of your body's programmed in a weird way to kind of know this time of the year, this is what I should be doing. And you've been doing that like so consistently for so many years, right? So it's like a break in routine. It's this break in, like, I know right now I should be doing this and I'm not. And like, what does that mean? But like, there's so many good things that's going to be out there. And the one thing that I think, like you had said for a while, the ability to kind of spend a little bit of time with putting a little bit more focus on your brand, because I think that that's really important. Like, you don't, as a kind of a sole operator, you kind of run into that situation of being the team manager, kind of overseeing the crew chiefing, making sure that you're like paying for everything, running things, getting the logistics done, running the thing. And then you also have to drive at a competitive level versus now maybe having the opportunity to maybe just focus on like the actual ability to like put your brand up there, let people see you in a different light than they have before, do some more social stuff, really throw some crazy stuff out there in the drifting universe,
Yeah. And we've talked about this so much since someone in my position, a driver in my position, has to be a jack of all trades in this, because it's Formula Drift really is the driving is the reward for all the work in the back end, and all the work in the back end is finding the money, doing like negotiating contracts and sponsorships, prepping the rig, being the truck driver, assembling a team, organizing spare parts, obviously doing everyone's flights, hotels, paying for all that food, making sure your guys are happy, and making sure the car's reliable and runs, because you also build the car.
Yeah.
And there's the only time I really get to shut my brain off or try to shut my brain off is when I'm physically driving the car. And that doesn't leave a lot of time for other things, because the one thing I left out was the social media side, which is so huge this year, or not this year, but is so huge in this industry. And when you're doing all those other things, it's very difficult to figure out where to take time away from to add to something else, because last thing I want to do is give too many things the attention But for me, I always wanted my car to be reliable and as competitive as possible. And that's what I focused most of my time and energy on. And obviously my socials and all that kind of stuff got less energy.
Yeah.
And the way the sport is trending, it almost seems like it's more important to have the other thing.
Yeah.
So this will give me a chance to try the other way around and focus on the socials and drive without having so much work on the other end, that I'm hoping the brand can grow and we can really prove that, like, I'm hoping that I can grow it at a rate that proves a good value for a lot of these partners. And if we can secure the budget next year to keep growing at that rate, if I come up with a good game plan for this year and a process that works for me, that, I mean, it should just naturally gain from there if I do it right.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you have to have both. You have to have the brand and you have to have the competitive car in the long run. I've had the competitive car, but I've had no socials. So I have to do some rearranging.
It's going to be good though. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's going to be good. I know it feels like I have to convince you of that right now, but it's going to be good, man. Like, you know what I mean? It's, I think, listen, you've been doing this long enough where I think people take you seriously. So I think, you know, it's not a program that comes in and out. There's no clowning that goes on within your program. I don't think you've ever said anything to anybody that you didn't deliver on. And I think that, you know, because of that, you've built up a steady group of people that are kind of invested in you and what you're doing. So, you know, I think it's going to be exciting to kind of see you kind of go through this year and see what kind of cool things are on the agenda, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to make it a point that, like, all of my partners have been with me for a while, and just like you guys, like, everyone's kind of considered a family in this. And the stuff that happened this year, it really is just business.
Right.
And I understand that it's not, like, everyone wants to point the finger of, like, who
is the person that caused it. Yeah.
Whose fault is this? It's not anyone's fault. It's just everyone has to make decisions to that makes the most sense financially, and unfortunately, like, that decision puts us in this position. But I'm not mad or upset with any of the partners that had to pull or cut budget or move budget elsewhere, because we're still working together. Like, I still have all the same partners. We're still working at some capacity. It's just not at the capacity that allows me to compete.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah. So, all right. So we're not throwing up any middle fingers at this stage.
Yeah. Definitely not.
All right.
It's one of those things where it is business. I understand it. It is what it is, and we all as a community roll with the punches and figure it out and make the best of it.
Is there anybody that you would like to throw the finger up to, maybe that has nothing to do with your sponsors? Any other competitors that maybe
surprisingly, like, drifting is so, even on a professional level, drifting is so dope that, like, even through a bunch of bullshit, I have, like, there's not a single person on the paddock that I'm not cool with.
Yeah.
Even if you have, like, some sort of, like, issue or something throughout the, like, everyone's just like, I don't know, we're dudes. We're like, all right, you're mad at me? Why? All right, cool. All right, let's fix it. We're friends again. See you later. Like, catch you next time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Right. And so as long as we're really latching our hoods, we should be.
Yeah, exactly. And it's still one of those things where, like, everyone's homies in the pit until the visor goes down.
That's how it should be, though.
When the visor goes down, you're like, all right, I'm going to, you know, I'm sending that guy home for the weekend. Like, he's not my friend right now. And then as soon as whatever happens, visors come up, and it's like, I'm stoked I won, but sorry, man. Like, I know how much you wanted this too. Like, but I don't know, you'll get me next time or whatever, you know? Or it's never really, like, it's the most competitive, non-competitive sport in the world, I feel like, if that makes sense.
No, it does, because look, there's a lot of camaraderie. I mean, I will always remember, I think, out of everything that, you know, all the drifting in all the years we've been involved with different teams, whatever, I'll always remember the year that Well, it was your pro spec. It was your pro spec championship year.
Yeah.
The year where Dylan was in a fight to kind of, overtake that championship. He put it into the wall, and
I had not qualified.
Right. You didn't qualify the last event out of everything else.
The only event I've never qualified for in my entire life.
Right. But let's not focus on that. Let's focus on the part where Dylan puts it into the wall, totally destroys the back, what, I don't want to say back right corner, but most of the back suspension, right? And then you literally go from there and start running, because you guys have the same car at that point. Yeah, you start running back to your car and start disassembling all of your rear suspension, knowing that you're going to run it over to Dylan's car and put it back on his car. Now, you're boys. We get it. Yeah. But there is this real thing that it's basically like, hey, listen, for a championship, at that point, the best case scenario potentially from a competitive aspect of you winning the championship would be if you just hung back and be like, damn, dude, that sucks, right?
Yeah.
But like, you took your car apart and made sure that they got him back out there, because that's not how you were going to let a win go down.
Yeah, I mean, but who wants to like win like that either? You talk to all these drivers. Like all the dudes I drive with in Pro 1, like if someone's car breaks or they just like shit the bed and crash or something, and you just like float through to the next round, you don't feel satisfied like you got the win.
No, just like, you don't feel satisfied. But I can tell you right now, there are some people that have been very opportunistic, and I don't know that I listen. I don't know that you can blame them for that, right? Like, I don't want to make it.
We definitely take what we can get, because you never know what's going to happen. Because like, there's at any point your car could shit out on you, and you're left in that position. So you take the win, but it's a different feeling
when you earn it.
When you get the nod to go to the next round from someone crashing out, or if you like outdrive them, it's a totally different feeling. And I don't know, like, Dylan's my boy. Would I have done that for anyone? Probably not. But like, there's definitely a handful of guys that I'm competing against that like that is a no-brainer for.
I get that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, and it didn't matter to me. And like, who am I to sit there and just gatekeep the win? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I had something to lose, but he like also like, I don't know.
He still had a win.
Yeah, he still had to win that next battle.
Yeah.
With a car that definitely was not up to par, but I was going to make sure that he had the tools to at least try.
No, listen, I think that's probably that's probably out of all our teams and anything we've ever sponsored, I think that was probably one of my top moments, because it really like that was really like exactly the type of person that we always want to be linked with, because like that's what this sport's supposed to be about, right? And I think that drifting has a higher level of camaraderie than
any other sport.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm gonna do, like, all of us, like any of us teams are gonna do that, or do our best to keep that alive, because that's what initially like made this sport as great as it is.
100%.
So, but I don't know. It was just like, that's another thing I'm gonna miss, dude. I'm gonna miss being like, damn, my shit's broken, and Dylan being like, oh, I got one, it's in the trailer, just get me back whenever, or vice versa. Or like Dylan's dudes, I don't have a nitrous pump, like our bottles are empty, or someone left the bottle open, it leaked out, I gotta fill some nitrous. All right, dude, pumps in the trailer, like, help yourself. You know, like, I will miss that shit for sure.
I think ultimately though, it's gonna be a different vibe. It's not gonna be something you're missing. It's just going to be a different vibe for a while. And I think it's going to allow you to maybe come back even stronger, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the plan.
Yeah, I'm with it. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on here. We're going to, I just know I know that you do have a loyal following, a loyal base. It's nice to be able to kind of hear what the deal is, so that people don't do you dirty. And also, I think it's, look, it's not a goodbye. It's a see you in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Overall, this year's going to be good. I'm still going to be out driving. I'll be driving a bunch of different things and be posting a lot more content around those things that I'm doing. So keep a lot of people in the loop throughout the year, and hopefully everyone digs that and everything continues to grow, and I have some more leverage to come back next season. So that's the plan.
We should mark it. We're gonna check your following right now on this date, and then we're gonna check this in a year, and it's gonna be like,
yeah.
Nice.
So, dude, thanks for coming on.
That's the plan.
Thanks for coming on and hanging out with us for a little bit.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate you guys. You guys have always got my back.
Yep.
I still have a wall of wheels sitting in the shop I haven't unboxed yet.
That's all right.
Waiting to get these cars done.
That's all right. It's better off that you have them right now. You know.
I just walked in the shop and it's just like 30 boxes.
Good. Well,
lining my wall next to my parts shelf.
That's what happens when you have that many cars that you have to run over and over again. So
yeah, damn, you guys are lucky you don't make off-road stuff.
No, well, we do.
I'd be hounding you.
Almost, sort of.
Yeah, I'm either 8-lug or
8-lug
UTV stuff. So.
Yes, like the side-by-side stuff. Yeah,
what are
we'll
you guys
see.
doing?
I don't know. We're gonna have to see. We'll see. But we got some stuff. We're gonna figure it out. So, all right, dude. Thanks. I'll catch up with
Travis, thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it. I'll catch you later.
No doubt.